So you can start.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation that you have made for me to deliver this brief talk to the IEEE in India. I know you are interested in cybernetics and have been honoring the great Norbert Wiener, the father of cybernetics. Okay, thank you. My connection to cybernetics is through Stafford Beer, who maybe some of you know about. In the early 70s, I was working on a new theory of the state in the law, and I asked myself, what is the connection between law and cybernetics? So then I found the book of Ross Ashby, and I got very excited because I noticed that his idea of requisite variety in control theory was very applicable to legal systems and how legal systems work. So I eventually was introduced to Stafford Beer, and I wrote to him, and we became good friends. And through Stafford Beer, I also met Wes Churchman, Russell Lakoff, Heinz von Forster, Gordon Pask, Donella Meadows. Many of them made very important contributions to cybernetics and systems thinking. Stafford Beer had been a disciple of Warren McCulloch, and he had met Norbert Wiener in the United States. I later invited Stafford Beer to Mexico to work on a project similar to the Project CyberSyn, but it didn't work. So now I'm going to go directly to tell you about what I think are the most important insights that I have learned from my contact with Stafford Beer, a great cybernetician. And I hope what I'm going to tell you gives you a little framework for your studies and your desire to learn more about cybernetics. Cybernetics really was born during the Macy Foundation meetings in New York City after the World War II. Warren McCulloch, Gregory Bateson, and Margaret Mead were very interested in knowing more about a conference that Arturo Rosenbluth and Wiener and Julian Bigelow had given in 1943. So they made the agreement after the war to get together, and they met in the next 10 years until about 1952 or 53 in New York City. And some people are calling this Macy conferences the Big Bang of the information age. In one of the first meetings, John von Neumann produced a paper with the design for a programmable memory. And also in one of those first sessions, one of the first years, Wiener defined information as negative entropy using Boltzmann's formula with a negative sign. Through the years, cybernetics has accumulated many definitions. I'm going to tell you what I think are some of the most important. You have to agree then that cybernetics was an interdisciplinary effort, because many different sciences contributed during the Macy Foundation meetings to produce cybernetics, which was contained in a book by Wiener called Cybernetics, or Communications and the Animal and the Machine. So we have first the definition by Plato and Aristotle about the art of the pilot. Then we have Wiener using this definition of communication and control in Animal and the Machine. Then we have the definition by Ross Ashby that I read in his book, Introduction to Cybernetics. which is the study of behavior of all possible machines, whether physical or ideal. So anything that has a purpose falls into the field of cybernetics. Stafford talked about the science of effective organization. And later on, a group of people that we have followed Stafford Beer's ideas have reached the conclusion that we can say that cybernetics is sort of a super science or a supra science of interconnectedness, and underlies many different sciences, giving them a perspective on control theory. The importance of cybernetics today is that I think that the hierarchical pyramid of organization charts are failing everywhere, in private businesses and in government. The lifespan of big corporations is now being cut down to about 15 years average, and the viable system model, which is Stafford's contribution to management cybernetics, predicts that as complexity increases, you're going to have many more communication issues arising that need to be solved quickly and efficiently. Businesses that do not have this adaptation capacity die pretty fast or are taken over by the competitors. So Sandy Pentland from MIT told me in an email that cybernetics, he said, is everywhere. It is like air, and this is why we find cyber citizen, cyber cafe, cyber space, cyber crime. But I want to emphasize that cybernetics is much more than computers. Cybernetics is the mother science of artificial intelligence, of the new focusing of sociology. It's really a new way of doing science. It's a way of doing science where you're not looking for universal laws or principles. You are building models. And the models, as you know, are not true or false. They work and they're useful, or they don't work. So these are some of the insights that I learned from Stafford Beer. Now, when I say that the hierarchical organizations are now very troublesome in an age of big complexity, we have to look again at the constitution of countries. Constitutions are like the software of a country. And the United States Constitution, for example, that has been copied in many parts of the world, is, I think, no longer useful. It does have some mechanisms that qualify as cybernetic, all the checks and balances. But then you have a executive or a president whose power is a pyramid. So you have both types of organizations mixed up. And I am in favor of creating a new cybernetic state where everything, all the structure, follows the viable system. And when I talked to Stafford Beer about this, I asked him, would I find the viable system in the Mexican Constitution? He said, I'm sure you will. So I read it again. I read it many times as an attorney, but not focusing the cybernetics. And then I found everything. You find the recursive structure, you find amplifiers, filters, you find everything that is in the viable system model, like the identity, the long-term planning, the executive, the coordination, different operations, and everything. So what I want to say is that the constitutions we know about right now have one part cybernetics and the other the pyramid. And we have to make an effort to create an intelligent cybernetic state where information flows freely and people and bureaucrats do not sit on valuable information and use that for their own particular and profit or purpose. Okay? If the founding fathers of the United States were alive today, and I mean like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, if they were alive today, I am pretty sure they would be redesigning the Constitution to adapt it to the times and the technology available. I know your seminar, your conference is about intelligent thinking machines, and I don't doubt that you have the wizardry to probably create thinking machines. But I would like to see the state become a thinking organization, a really intelligent organization. And we have Stafford's viable system model, or a version that I'm creating called the Universal Management System, which is a bit more simple to understand, as an option to rebuild the government and make it really fair, simple, and almost, I would say, invisible. Okay? So, as I said, the state structure maps perfectly to the viable system model. So we are not that far away from creating an intelligent organization. So this is more or less what I was planning to talk to you about. Now there are some other details very interesting. For instance, Wiener and Rosenbluth had this Eureka moment, this moment of discovery, of great excitement, when Wiener commented to Rosenbluth that anti-aircraft guns being controlled by radar sometimes showed strange trembling movement. And Rosenbluth associated that with certain disorders of the brain. So that was the Eureka moment when the world of the mechanical and the world of the living came together through the concept of feedback. Now, unfortunately, in the casual use of the word feedback, there is a lot of ignorance, and people say, "Oh, I got positive feedback because they like my shirt. Oh, I got negative feedback because people didn't like my poem." And you and I know that positive feedback has to do with acceleration, a system that is being accelerated, and negative feedback is error controlling feedback. So most systems, living or mechanical, that have a purpose have an important component of fed-forward systems that keeps them running, and then some sort of control or negative feedback, error controlling information. So if you have a car, you have the engine, which produces acceleration, and then you have the wheel and the brakes, and to control the speed of the car and the direction of the car. So I am very concerned about the lack of knowledge of systems. We suffer a very big blindness to systems. For instance, the world financial crisis, I see that you are talking about this in your sessions. It was 100% predictable. You have this out of control loop producing homes, and they were going to crash. But yet nobody was able to stop this. We need a stronger culture of systems, and I would wish you, the members of the IEEE association to become concerned about this preoccupation with the having people understand systems better and having cybernetics being taught at universities. I would expect your association to push this idea forward, and not only to build intelligent machines, but also to build more intelligent governments. And with this, I am finishing what I wanted to tell you, and I appreciate very much your attention. And if anybody has a question and you have the time, I would be very willing to answer your questions. Thank you.